Again, I want to welcome you. Sorry to interrupt your visiting and your breakfast, but we'd like to begin our program. Wanted to call your attention to one of the items on the tables this morning. This Sunday night, there'll be a special concert here in celebration of 10 years of Show Hope. It's an organization you're probably familiar with, Stephen Curtis and Mary Beth Chapman, just a support organization for orphans, and would love to invite you to be a part of that evening here. It's this Sunday night, a special concert here in the arena. We, again, are glad that you're with us this morning, and in keeping with our tradition, we want to begin our program with an invocation, and I'm delighted to introduce to you someone who's been with the university for a couple of years now, involved in things that most of us, at least 5-10 years ago, didn't know even existed in terms of the educational things that are going on here at the university. But Fortune Malanga has been at the university for 2 years. He's the director of the School of Computing and Informatics here at Lipscomb. And just to give you a little bit of a better feel for what that is in terms of the degree programs, there's master's degrees of science in healthcare informatics, information security, information technology management, and software engineering, things that affect all of us in our businesses. But we are glad that Fortune is here at Lipscomb, and ask him to lead us in our invocation. Fortune.
A very good morning to you all. We are so very encouraged by your presence today. Please join me in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for being the God of all creation, creator and source of all being. We give you thanks for the beauty of this day, for the gift of this world, and for the gift of each other. Thank you for the food that we have had this morning. We ask that you bless the hands that have prepared it for the nourishment of our bodies. We thank you for the mixture of our cultures, blending us into one people under God. We especially give you thanks for the gift of our vocations as we represent the business, industry, and academic sectors of our community. Help us, Lord, to use these vocations to become a light to society and to further the cause of freedom and justice all over the world. We ask that you open our eyes so that we may see what you wish us to see, that you open our ears, that in our dialogue we may hear what you want us to hear. We ask that you hold all the people that are affected by the Oklahoma tornado in your loving hands. We seek your blessing and favor for the victims. Protect them in their time of need and also in time of bereavement. We pray that you bring an end to their suffering. Bless them, their families, and all those who are reaching out with a helping and comforting hand. We also remember those who are less fortunate than us. We lift in prayer the victims of poverty and all those who suffer from all different forms of political and economic oppression. And so we ask that you open our hearts, that we may feel as you feel towards those in greatest need of our services. We pray that you will bless us as we have all come to experience your presence among us this morning, and as we reflect on strategies towards the growth of our community and the impact that this can make the world over. Thank you for everybody in attendance today, and thank you for allowing George to come and share with us some of his experiences. May your light continue to enfold us. May your spirit continue to guide us. May your grace continue to abound in us. This is our prayer through Christ who died for us. Amen.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you as we continue in our breakfast, and in just a moment to introduce our speaker to you. It's great to have you at Lipscomb. I was trying to think about what's happened in this arena in the last 96 hours. And I want you just to imagine these events that have taken place here. We had the Special Olympics this weekend with hundreds of athletes, some young, some older, all of whom have challenges in life. And as they walked in on Friday night, they walked in as if they were in London, with the same enthusiasm and crowds cheering as they anticipated participating in Special Olympics on this campus. We tucked in all around Special Olympics 6 high school graduations this last weekend. Not only did we graduate students from Lipscomb Academy, but we graduated students from 5 public high schools, and frankly from some high schools that had no other place to go. And we are pleased to welcome them each year and to host that exciting moment in the lives of those young people as they graduate from high school. Then just last night, some of us were here until relatively late, as the YMCA hosted a dinner celebrating their Latino achievers. And we recognized 39 Latino students from our high schools, many of whom were born in this country, but whose parents were not. And they have overcome all kinds of obstacles in order to graduate from high school, every one of which on their way to college. So I just want you to have a sense that as you gather this morning in this arena, the seats may be empty around you. But the last 96 hours, there have literally been thousands of people in perhaps the most joyous time of the year, seeing young people achieve in outstanding ways. Kate, I want to thank you for your co-sponsorship of this, as we do all the time. We had a speaker at Lipscomb not very long ago who was telling us about the challenges in the newspaper media industry. I left that conversation with that publisher thinking how wonderful it is we have a business publication. We have a dynamic, alive, excited, engaged business publication, and we appreciate every 90 days or so you joining us for this particular program. Our speaker today is someone who I heard for the first time just several weeks ago. And after I heard him in a chamber event, I wrote down on my iPhone, here's someone we ought to have at Lipscomb. I went back to my office and I'm reading the Nashville Business Journal, and I see the ad for this morning's breakfast. And I'm thinking, my folks finally figured it out. If they can think before me and already have it in place, we got great potential around here. And so it's exciting to know that just a few weeks, literally later, George Lazenby is going to be our speaker today and sharing with us as we do each time. I did a little research on him, and I can't figure out what he does. To tell you the truth, I went to read the website, and it didn't have a lot of meaning to me, but the phrase they have there is impressive. He's the CEO of a company who is the leading provider of revenue and payment cycle management and clinical exchange solutions. I don't know what that is. I'm sure we need it. And I'm sure the healthcare world needs it. And I would guess my own institution needs whatever that is. But then it went on to talk about all the people he deals with. I think it's a challenge to try to manage 200 faculty. He actually has a network of 340,000 providers, 60,000 pharmacies, 81,000 dentists, 5,000 hospitals, and 1,200 government payers. An amazing thing to think about, that somehow some CEO has all of that in his control and is walking that out in a way that is helpful to our community. Graduate of the University of Alabama, someone who, like so many of us, chose to live in this city, had other choices in the Southeast, but chose Nashville and is investing in it with us. Married, has 2 children, both teenagers, and we are so pleased that not only on a personal basis, but on a professional basis, he's here with us this morning. Would you please welcome George to the podium?
I can't do the podium for a couple of reasons. One, I rarely stand still, and two, when I get behind it, you can't see me. So I'm going to be wandering around as I'm making my presentation, and what struck me about the introduction, which was fabulous, and thank you very much, and I'd love the opportunity to be here at Lipscomb University this morning. It's such a great place, such a treasure within our city. But it struck me that he said, I don't understand what you do. Well, it sounds like a board meeting. And then an all-employee meeting on top of that. No. But our company effectively helps simplify the business of healthcare is what we do. So you have the sort of clinical and treatment side and then the business side, and that's what we're focused on. What I'm going to do today is spend a few minutes and give you some insight into MDI, and then talk a little bit about our experiences with innovation. How do I advance it? Okay, there we go. So MDI is the nation's leading health information exchange. We are the leading provider of payment and revenue cycle management solutions and clinical information exchange in the country. Our customers are hospitals, physician offices, clinics, labs, payers, both commercial payers like your Aetnas and Cignas and Humanas, as well as all the government payers. And effectively what we do is help the very fragmented community of healthcare such as this connect and communicate around business. And you know, the easy way to think about it is every time you go to the doctor, there are many, many points of information exchange between your physician, other physicians and pharmacies, as well as the insurance company that typically pays a portion of the bill for you, and we manage all of that for them. Over the years, we've developed products and services that help facilitate that in a better way, but that's the core of our business. So when you look at that graphic up there, we sort of sit in the middle. We're not a provider or a payer. We're not a pharmacy or a clinic. We're the glue that hooks them together so that they can communicate. And the alternative to MDI is really a telephone call, a person-to-person telephone call, a printed and mailed document, and inefficiency. Several years ago, we put together through work, in our own internal work, and the work with the collaboration of our competitors, the Healthcare Efficiency Index, and we demonstrated in that index that we're saving, the things that MDI does saves roughly $30 billion a year out of the system today. So it's a substantial savings through automation that we create. The 3,700 employees that we have, 1,000 of which are roughly in the city of Nashville, are committed to simplifying a very complex system that we have today, and one that's going through an awful lot of change. In many ways, I'll say we haven't done a whole lot, but we have, because it's still very complicated, and that's our mission, to make it simple and efficient, which is something we desperately need to do in our community today. Our strategy really, and let's talk a little bit about the strategy of our company, and this will set a context for the talk about innovation. The strategy of our company really starts on the foundation of that network, on that connectivity. So we have all of these stakeholders connected into us and connected out, and they're exchanging all this information. On top of that network, we've built applications, and you can think of the network in a way that you would think of Verizon or AT&T as your cell carrier. You know it's out there, but it's abstract from what you do day to day. The main thing you know is when it doesn't work. It should always work, and that's the way our network is. It should always work. The application, the next layer above that, is more intimate with the user. That is something that you touch and feel every day. It would be like your phone. And we build applications that connect to that network to help our customers manage their workflow. On top of that, those applications, we have an analytics layer, and the analytics layer takes advantage of the data that comes through the network and the data that is informed from the workflow of our customers, with the sole purpose of making our products and network perform better, but also giving our customers insight into their business that they wouldn't otherwise have. And finally, on top of that layer are services. We've come to understand that the bottom 3 layers are really only enablers, meaning you can hand someone the connectivity, a product, and the analytics, and if they choose not to use it, the value they derive from that is relatively low. So in order for us to fulfill our mission or our goal of simplifying healthcare, sometimes we have to put a service layer on top of all those products and analytics and that network so our customers can actually realize the benefit of the services that we provide. And what we've done with this particular graphic is all of the white lettering or the companies that we've acquired over the years and how they fit into that strategy. If I were talking to the financial community, they consistently ask questions about, well, why are you doing this? Why are you buying that company? That seems inconsistent with what I understand about your strategy. So we created this, because when you're dealing with the investment banking community, you have to really boil it down. That's a cut on investment bankers, if you didn't get that. I feel like I can do that because we pay them an awful lot of money every year. Okay, so that's our strategy and our company at a very, very high level. I would tell you that my history with this company is I've been involved with it since 1996. I moved to Nashville in 1995, worked for a local public accounting firm, I was going to say Herd McElroy and Bessel, which is the one that I work for in Louisiana. But I work for Lattimore, Black, Morgan, and Kane here. And one of the predecessor companies actually on that list was Client. And I took the opportunity to move into industry to help this company position itself to go public. Medifax was the name of the company. Went with another one of my friends who's in the audience today, and he and I went over to help them go public, and then the market did what it does, which is the tech bubble burst and crashed. So at $14 million in revenue and no earnings, we didn't really have a platform to go public on, so we had to run the business. And from that point forward, we've grown that business from that $14 million to $1.1 billion in revenue and around $300 million of EBITDA, which is earnings calculation that most IT companies are measured by. So we've had a lot of success over the years, and a lot of it through innovation. And you can see how the company has evolved. So when I started, we were relatively small, network only, if you go back to that strategy slide. As we look at our company today, over $1 billion in revenue, and you can see the stack filling up. The measure of the bars is really how much contributed revenue there is. You can see right now the application layer is the largest driver of revenue, but the services are catching up. And in the future, we see a much more even distribution of that. But again, that network being the platform from the foundation, if you will, of the innovation. And this is how the company has evolved and will continue to evolve based on that strategy. Before you can innovate, you have to make sure your company is ready. And I think this particular part of any business is a very, very difficult part. So there's understanding and having your systems, if you're an IT company, having your systems in a position to accept the change that comes with innovation is critical. I know at Endion we spent years getting our systems to a place where we could actually innovate on top of them. The company had grown dramatically through acquisitions, so we had a lot of fragmented capabilities and systems that had to be rationalized. And all of that had to take place in order for us to be in a position to innovate. Once you've done that, you have to make sure you have buy-in from the team, and then a willingness to invest. And that sounds really strange, but the way organizations are set up today, everyone wants a very quick return for every investment they make, and there's a high level of scrutiny on risk taken in an organization. So there's a lot of work that you have to do within a company to make people understand that many of the things that you pursue from an innovation standpoint are going to fail. The trick is getting them to fail fast, so that the organization doesn't get bogged down in things that aren't going to move forward. If you're not pushing the envelope, you're probably not going to create the next thing. And that's one of the sort of keys to learning that we've come from, that we've sort of developed from it. Once you've gotten your organization in a position to innovate, then you have to develop a process. And I used to, I don't read many business books, honestly. I don't finish any of them. I try to read them, but you know, I start reading it, it's the same old thing, they just change the words a little bit, and I'm like, ah. But the one thing that's true about companies that are successful and that innovate well is they lock into a repeatable process, okay? They figure out a way to teach the organization to inherently do things in a similar way. That builds confidence in the organization. So process is important, and each company will have its own process, but the key characteristics of the process are you have to develop, I call this one the wilderness. So you have to, let's see how I wrote this. You have to get consensus on the idea. So you have to wander around in the market and find your problem. And everyone has to agree that that's something that you're going to solve. And that wandering in the wilderness, going out and testing and talking to customers and trying to figure out how it is that you can help them given the assets and strengths of the company you have is important. The key to the wilderness is don't stay out there very long, because it's rough out there, and you might not survive. After you've gone through the wilderness, you sort of create a team, and a fast team. You make a commitment to drive at solving this problem quickly. And it can't be the responsibility of any one group within an organization. Because if you do that, then you're going to create a dynamic where, well, I did my part. Well, no, the company has to bring the solution to the market and serve the customer. So you have to have every discipline present in that team, the sales and marketing teams, the voice of the customer, the IT areas, the product management teams. They all have to come together for the sole purpose, and they have to be passionate about it. Once you've set that fast team in place, you have to communicate very, very clearly to the organization what you're doing. This is also very hard. I found myself in situations where either I'm speaking to a group of people about what we're going to do and I have the blank faces like I'm seeing right now, or they're speaking to me and I'm not quite getting it. So you really have to drive at that. And sometimes I personally overlook that step. I think you just do it. You know, you just do what I'm telling you to do. Just get after it, and you'll figure it out as we go along. The other part of that is being honest about the risks. Because you need to set the organization up to know that this is, these are fights that you go through. Innovation is not easy, or everyone would do it, and everyone would be successful at it. So setting that is very, very important. And then finally, create the process to measure and track against the results. This goes back to, we want to know how well we're doing. We want to get the feedback points in place so we can move quickly. In the event that this isn't going the way we want to pull the trigger and pull it back fast. Or we want to accelerate it if the things are more favorable than we thought. So that is, in a nutshell, how we look at innovation. I will say this too, a lot of innovation today we think of as new products, Apple or Google, and those are synonymous with innovation today. But the truth is, innovation comes in a number of packages. Pricing innovation. Once you can bundle enough services together, you can create an innovative approach to the market that makes you different, or it differentiates you from your competitors. Pricing innovation, market innovation, taking a look at what you're doing and how does it apply to an adjacent market. Those are innovations as well, and really follow the same process. You're just not building a new product and sticking it in the market. You're just taking what you have and you're looking at that and how does it apply to other problems and other areas of adjacent markets or even within the market that you're in. And we've done a lot of that at MDI, bundling together, creating a new point of view about how to solve a problem with the tools and assets that we have. And as an example, this is our sort of newest project. So when you think about our company, and you think about that network that connects hospitals and pharmacies and physician offices and payers and dental practices and labs and clinics, it collects a lot of information. In fact, it collects about a terabyte of data a month. And that's healthcare information. I think we represent around 25% of the overall healthcare transactions in the industry. It was 7 billion transactions last year, 2012. So lots of data comes through that system. What we're seeking to do with the analytics layer that we talked about in the very beginning is create a platform to expand our ability to innovate around it. So the innovation for us is a new business platform along the bottom. We have the data as a result of what we do. We have the distribution. Roughly 90% of the healthcare stakeholders in the market are customers of ours in some way. We want to accelerate our ability to develop analytics and business decision tools so that we can take advantage of the changes that are going on in the market and the need that our customers have to have better and quicker insights into their business. And because we're unique in our platform, because we're independent of their own systems, and we collect information so broadly, we feel like there are lots of products out there that we can support. But we know our appetite to invest in those products, the people to create those products, is going to be tempered by the desire to produce financial results in the short term for our investors. It's a way of life. I have people that expect us to actually hit numbers from time to time that own the company. So in order to overcome or accelerate that level of development, we want to create a platform where others can, in a way, conduct business with us using our data and our distribution. Said simply, a lot of smart people in healthcare and data and analytics these days. Let's give them access to the data that we have in an appropriate way, and let them build products and go out in the market. Let's create the platform for innovation in the healthcare industry. So this is a new thing that we're doing. I think we're following that same process that I talked about earlier. We're in wilderness stage right now, although we're rapidly moving into the other pieces. And with that, I hope that gives you some insight into at least how we think about innovation and growth. I know that we're going to go through some question and answers up here. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. And you got up so early in the morning, I hope it was a little worthwhile. Okay?
Well, let me remind the audience that if you'd like to submit questions, you can do that. Follow the instructions on the screen, and we'd be delighted to use your questions if you'll send those in. George, speaking as a former investment banker, I felt the love there. I appreciate your compliments about the profession. Let me be true to the profession and keep things pretty simple here. So I think we spend more per capita on healthcare in the United States than any other Western nation. Our quality of care is not even in the top 10. Administrative costs due to our convoluted system consume about 1 out of every 5 healthcare dollars. Doesn't Indion really have a business built on that complication? And if we have to simplify our system, let's say we move toward a single payer system, what does that do to the future of your business?
Well, it would change the nature of the service we provide, but the need for the stakeholders to connect and communicate would not change. Look, the truth is we have an awful lot to do to make our health system, what I would say, affordable to our country. Mm-hmm. I say this all the time. I travel a fair amount, and I'm able to be in different countries and talk to them about their health care. And I'm always fascinated by the conversations. I was in Costa Rica, for example, several years ago, which is an awesome country. They've modeled their democracy after the United States. They're very proud that they had a woman president before we did. And about some number of years ago, they basically declared peace with the world and eliminated their military. And they took all of the investment from the military and they pushed it back into healthcare and education. Now, they can do that because Big Daddy is watching. You know, we're going to protect them for our own interests, and they know that. But having said that, it's created a very high level of literacy in that country, an exceptional level of literacy in that country. And I was talking to a gentleman about their healthcare system. He said, yeah, you guys haven't figured that healthcare thing out at all. Ours is free. I said, really? It's free? I said, it doesn't work that way. Nothing's free. Oh, yeah, it's free. So we continued the dialogue, and finally he admitted, well, it's free because, 25% of my wages are deducted for, healthcare and retirement. 25%. So the point I'm making is simply this. Their control of their healthcare spend has everything to do with access. There just aren't the number of facilities available for people to seek care, and that's a hell of a way to control how much you spend, number one. Number two, very, very high percentage of the wages they earn go to support the system that they have. We can afford to continue to do what we're doing. We can. You and I, all of us can afford it. It's just it becomes an even bigger priority, and I think we're finally hitting a point where people are concerned enough to where change will happen. Efficiency, in my opinion, will change when the incentives change. And the incentives aren't just of hospitals and physicians and payers, they're incentives to you and me. And once all of that happens, then we'll get it. I'm not sure the current healthcare law really gets to it, frankly, but we're moving in the right direction.
I was really impressed, George, when you spoke about your methodical approach to innovation, and obviously you've seen a lot of growth. Can you tell us what's keeping you up at night? I can't even begin to imagine what
Yeah.
that list is like. But
well, a number of my employees are here right now. I would say that what keeps me up at night the most is, are we moving fast enough with the changes that are happening? Any business like ours, we have these legacy components of the business that you have to continually evolve, and the energy around the legacy component is keeping that energy at a point where people understand, we all understand, our customers understand that level of investment and focus that they expect gets made. The other thing that I think about, or that worries me, is are we, and this is the collective we, really trying to solve this problem? And I think the reason that bothers me is because when you can see an answer and you can move towards that answer, but if that's not really what we're trying to solve, you don't know where you're headed. And I just feel like there are times when, as focused as we can be, the direction of the company is really at the whim of the marketplace.
You talked in your presentation about the sheer amount of data that your company has, and obviously you have probably more data about the U.S. healthcare system, perhaps than any other company in America. CMS recently released a major study of healthcare cost, and I think we were all maybe not shocked, but at least a little chagrined to learn that hospitals just a mile or two apart could have a variance of cost of thousands of dollars for exactly the same procedure. Do you plan to release any of your data? Is it possible even for you to do that under Privacy Acts? And how can we create more transparency in the system?
Yeah, there's obviously a huge push for transparency right now. In terms of the data that we have access to, you've hit on a very sensitive topic in healthcare. Okay, so for the record, you know, we don't believe we own data. We have access to information, and we have rights to use that information for certain things. But when you get into this whole conversation about ownership, wow, it just freaks everybody out. And the reason for that is no one really knows who owns it, and everybody claims to own it. So I intentionally do not participate in that particular discussion. But having said that, what do we intend to do with the information we have access to and the way that we can use it? We do intend to create products and services that provide a level of transparency that frankly doesn't exist in the market. We're focused on some key pain points: fraud, waste, and abuse, which is a $200 billion problem in our industry. We're focused on some quality measures around readmissions, where the position of Endion is such that we see the patient move through the system, whether they move from a hospital to a pharmacy or a physician office, in a way that's different than the hospital can see it or the physician can see it or the pharmacy. So we're trying to eliminate the silos. That's what we're trying to do.
You touched on billing fraud there. Can you talk a little bit more about what you do with them?
Yep, so fraud, waste, and abuse is a huge problem. I think the FBI says it's $60 billion a year, and the fraud associations say it's $200 billion a year. Pick one. B's are big, and it's not something that we can afford to allow to continue to happen in the market. Now, why is it so big in healthcare? Well, it's big because of the silos. I'll give you an example. So, a large commercial health insurer sees so many transactions that they really can't efficiently interrogate all of those claims to make sure all of them are appropriate. We actually can, because that data is flowing through our system. What we found, we've recently done an analysis of all of the providers submitted claims through our system, and we found some small percentage, but still a relevant number of providers are actually billing more than 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, it's not possible. I don't care how hard you work or how productive you are, you can't do that. There aren't any more than 24 hours in a day or more than 7 days in a week. So what's happening now is the fraud is being committed in a way that's not detected by the system, because what that provider is doing, and I'm not saying it's a real medical provider, I'm saying it's a fraudulent provider is doing, is they're submitting, as an example, 5 claims a day to 100 different payers. Well, to each payer, they see those 5 claims and think, that's no big deal. That probably makes sense. He's seeing 5 of my patients a day. They don't realize that the other 495 patients that probably, if they'd seen the entire picture, they probably think differently about it. So what our approach is to do is move that analysis of the claiming behavior, in this case, closer to the proximity of care and before it's paid, and then give the advantage of being able to see all of that submitter's activity instead of just one. So other markets are so far ahead of us with regard to detecting fraud, waste, and abuse that it's actually a benefit to us. We can learn how to do it better by the trail that's been blazed in the financial industry around consumer credit or identity theft.
Let me ask another investment banker question. You took the company public about 2009, great fanfare, big deal. And then less than a couple of years later, maybe about a couple of years later, you took it private.
Yeah.
Sold out to the largest asset manager in the world, Blackstone. Why did you do that so quickly? Obviously, there was a premium price paid, but why did it make sense to do that transaction? How's it working out, and do you plan to take the company public?
Well, So in August of 2009, we took the company public, and in November of 2011, we took it private. I learned an awful lot during that 2-year process of being public. There are a lot of fundamentals that control the value of a company that have little to do with the performance of the company. In our case, we were performing well against our forecast. In fact, we hit every number that we ever marketed the business on. Yet the stock sort of hovered around the IPO price the entire time we were public. What I learned about that was that even though we were public, still 74%, Greg's in the my general counsel's in the office. He would correct me if I got way out of line here, but I think some high percentage, 60+% of the company was still owned by 2 private equity firms. So that created a very interesting dynamic, and the dynamic was that any institutional investor understood that they were subordinate to the interests of those 2 big investors, number one. In other words, you know, George, I like your company, I like the story, it's hard for me to invest in it because what are those guys going to do? Okay? And you know, you can't really talk about what those guys are going to do because maybe they don't know what they're going to do. The second thing, though, that was probably a bigger hindrance to us is we had, because of that concentration of privately or non-liquid stock, we weren't trading a lot, so every day's trading volume was relatively low. Our liquidity was low in the market. So the big investors, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, the big institutional guys, really couldn't place their bet on MDION without dramatically affecting the stock price, and they know that they're not going to do that. So we had this fundamental issue that we were trying to resolve. I think Blackstone recognized that and was able to come in and pay a premium for the company and have something that was worth more than the public market was willing to support. And will we go public again? Hard to say. Once you get to the size that we are, that's certainly an option for us down the road, just as well as any type of strategic exit.
You took the lead on the Work IT initiative to help attract more talent to Nashville, particularly in the technology sector. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to your business regarding attracting talent? And then as kind of a follow-up, can you talk about, is there anything Nashville needs to do to change in order to garner even more of that talent coming into the city that we might be losing to elsewhere, say Austin or some other cities?
Yep. So, first of all, everybody in this room should be congratulated because I think if you're reading any of the literature that's coming out, Nashville was #1 in the country in overall job growth. So people in this room are doing something right because in an economy that's still emerging, we are accelerating. So one of the things that we recognized or have recognized is in order for us to grow and continue to be a successful community that we are, we're going to have to increase the number of IT people that are in our market. We've had over 1,000 jobs open, even in the worst economic times in Nashville, and that number is not getting smaller, partially because jobs are growing, but we're also not filling them. Now, just so everyone understands, this is not a problem that's unique to Nashville. In fact, it's a global issue, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working on it. So we started this Work at Nashville project with the Chamber, and they did an exceptional job. The team at the Chamber did a phenomenal job putting it together. They like to give me credit for it, and I appreciate that in a way, but my grandmother would be standing there in the back of the room doing that if I didn't really tell them where the credit should go. And we believe, and then there's information in all of your seats, by the way, on the program. We are one of many things that are going on in this community to solve that problem. Work at Nashville is really more about the immediate need. So we wanted to create the incentive for people that have the experience that we need to move here now. And so we created the playbook that allowed us all to talk at the same language to prospective candidates. We created a website, the Work at Nashville website, where you can go put your jobs out there that are available, and candidates can put in their profile. We've had over I think 358 media outlets pick this up, over 108 million impressions and visits. So it's been a phenomenally successful tool to get the message out. 36 countries, people coming in and looking at Nashville, virtually every state in the country, etc. Now the metrics are really going to be more around how many jobs are being filled on that. We're at that point now. We've created the awareness, the message is out, the tools are working. Now we're starting to look at on a monthly basis how many jobs are being filled, which is just starting, which is also encouraging, because when we entered the program, the average time to fill one of these positions was over 12 months. So it hasn't been in the marketplace for, 3 or 4 months now, and we're already seeing some success there. So it's an important initiative. I'm encouraged by it. And working with the Nashville Technology Council on the longer-term strategies around universities and schools to build our foundation, I think it's the way to go.
I was watching Ralph Schulz over here while you were making your comments. There's a smile about a mile wide on his face, so thanks for the plug for Ralph and the great job the Chamber does. You said you had 3,000 employees, 1,000 here in Nashville. That's terrific. Hope you continue to grow. Payment processing sounds like a great candidate for outsourcing, though. Do you do outsourcing? Do you plan to do more outsourcing around the world?
Well, we have, in terms of our services to our customers are considered outsourcing in a way. In other words, they turn over their ability to communicate with the other stakeholders to us and just connect to us and let it happen. If you're talking about outsourcing of our own employees, we do utilize outsourced vendors. I think about 10% of our total employee base, maybe about 300 or 400 employees are outsourced.
Outside the U.S.?
Yes, some outside the U.S. and some what they call onshore outsourcing now. And that's been a good tool for us. There are two things that you do in that market. One is it gives you capacity to expand more rapidly. So if we're having trouble finding a particular skill set, you can find pools of that skill set in other ways. And as long as you have the administrative infrastructure to support the complexity of working that way, you can accomplish really, really neat things. It's not our desire to offshore a majority of our company. Healthcare really doesn't support that the way the laws are written. But in our experience, it's not always the right answer either. I think we've figured out what's best for our own company in pursuing those strategies, but it'll never be a big part of our overall staffing strategy.
Well, we have time for one more question. So as we finish up today, and everybody's going to go off and go to work and contribute to the community, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received that you take with you day to day that could help inspire us?
Okay, that's a great question. The best piece of advice I was ever given was by the CEO of a company that we had just acquired. And I was young. I was in the accounting department of the firm that I worked for, of Medifax. And it was basically complaining to this individual about, I'd gotten to know him through the diligence process. Man, I've got a lot of great ideas about how we should be running this company, and no one will listen to me. I know it's because I'm a bean counter, and I know it's because I look young. Nobody will take me seriously. And Scott Kornhauser is the guy's name. I think, buddy, you're in the audience. You'll get a kick out of this. Scott looked at me and said, Jordy, it has nothing to do with that. People will listen to you when you have the voice of your customer. When you understand what your customer needs, you'll have a seat at the table. Wow, he's not going to let me complain, you know. He put it right back to him. And what I did was I took that and tried to figure out how in the world a controller is going to get in front of the customer. And as it worked out, I was responsible for collections and found out that people don't pay their bills for a number of reasons, one of which is they don't have money, but most of the time it's because they're unhappy about something. Sales guy sold me something that you don't really do. You know, your product doesn't work the way you said it was going to work. I can't get it installed in, you know, it took you too long to plug it in. And so as a result of getting into those conversations around trying to resolve the payment issue, I started being more and more involved with customer and solving problems in the business, and then it just led to me taking more responsibility in the company. So that was the single best piece of advice I was given. Second one to that was my dad is a serial entrepreneur and very, very different from me. And I got the biggest kick out of this piece of advice that I didn't take from him. Just graduated the University of Alabama in 1991, went through a first series of job interviews, was lucky enough, back then the economy wasn't so great, I was lucky enough to get a job offer pretty quickly from a firm that I wanted to work for, mainly because my wife lived in that town. She wasn't my wife then. I called my dad, I was so happy, I'm proud that I got my job. And he said, well, what did they offer you? And I told him $24,000 a year salary. He goes, well, you need to call him back and tell him you want double. I go, and I just hesitated. I go, double? He goes, yep, double. I said, why is that? Well, if they're going to offer you a job, they need you. I go, Dad, let me handle this one.
Let's thank George for being with us today.
Thank you, George. I don't know that I understand any more about your business, at least in the technical aspect, but I do understand a lot more as we step back from it, and that piece on innovation was outstanding. We'll use that at this university with a project we just focused on yesterday. So thank you for being here and sharing that. As we get ready to leave, let me just share this final comment with you. 96 hours ago, I told you the arena was filled up with graduation after graduation. Special Olympics were all over the campus. And while all those activities were going on, I was at home waiting for a new basketball coach to arrive from Stetson University in Florida. You may have heard that we hired a basketball coach. In fact, you probably heard about it before we actually hired the basketball coach, which is always exciting for those of us here. But two things went on that weekend that I think are a reminder to us. The first one not all that significant, but the second one very, very significant. After Casey Alexander agreed to come from Stetson University back to Nashville and coach at Lipscomb, I was there waiting for him Saturday to arrive from Florida. We got the contract signed, and a few hours later, my grandson visited me. Some of you know Weston. He's 7 years old. He walks into my house, and he's absolutely forlorn. I mean, he's disappointed. His body shows it. His facial expression shows it. I've been working all day long to put this thing together. In fact, I've been working 40 days straight to put this thing together. And here my grandson walks in, and he says, Granddad, how could you ever hire a coach from Belmont? Well, you may have asked that question too, but I tried to think about how I'd respond to this. And I didn't think he'd understand that the coach has a faith journey very much like ours, or that his father graduated from Lipscomb University, or that he was coming from Stetson, not from Belmont. I mean, my grandson was so disappointed in me. And I was trying to figure out what to say, and I said, well, Weston, I said, we hired someone who's had a lot of experience at Belmont so we could learn all their secrets. And he walked across the room and thought for a moment and then eventually looked back and kind of perked up and said, "Okay, Granddad, I think that'll be okay. I think that'll be okay." Well, that's one moment. And then as we introduced the coach to the media on Sunday afternoon, another moment occurred that is really much, much more significant. You got to imagine being in the boardroom, which is over in the Azell Center. Here are all the cameras set up. Here Phil introduces the new basketball coach at Lipscomb, and he's up there. And as he's up there, he's talking about this job and coming back to Nashville and close to family. And you can tell here's someone who's really, really pleased with this moment. And he starts thanking people. One of the people that he started to thank, as you can imagine, was Rick Byrd, the person he worked with for more than a decade at Belmont. And as he starts thinking about Rick Byrd and the mentoring he had received, tears well up in the eyes of this brand new coach. And I looked across the room to the back of the room, behind all the television cameras, and standing back there is his coach from Belmont, his mentor, Rick Byrd, who had come to share this moment at Lipscomb with the person he had mentored for so many years. And I looked closely at Rick Byrd, and his eyes, too, were filled with tears. And what that reminds me of is that we will all leave in a few moments and be extraordinarily busy all day long with the transactions of our life. But perhaps more profound are the relationships in our life that mold us and form us and are a great treasure. As you leave today, go forth, handle the transactions, but treasure the relationships. God bless you.